Elena Rodriguez stepped through the airlock of a massive alien station that orbited Jupiter like a metallic moon. The structure was bigger than any human city, its dark metal surfaces covered with strange symbols that seemed to shift and glow in the starlight. She had trained for this moment for 3 years, ever since the first alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system and announced themselves as the Galactic Council. Behind her walked Jake Morrison, a tall man with sharp eyes who served as Earth's security chief for this mission. His hand rested near his sidearm, though everyone knew human weapons would be useless against alien technology. Next to him, Dr. Lisa Grant carried a tablet filled with data about Earth's achievements, from Shakespeare to quantum physics, ready to present humanity's case for membership in galactic civilization. The alien who met them looked like a walking tree made of crystal, its body transparent and glowing with inner light. It spoke through a device that turned its musical chimes into English words. "I am Crystalline Attendant Vexare of the Zerathi. You will follow me to the council chamber. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless addressed. Do not show disrespect to your betters." Elena said nothing as they walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls showed scenes from a dozen different worlds, each more beautiful and advanced than Earth. She saw cities that floated in gas-giant atmospheres, crystal spires that reached into space, and machines that seemed to think and dream like living beings. Other aliens moved through the corridors with purpose and grace. Elena watched a being made of swirling gas float past, carrying what looked like a small star in its tendrils. A creature that resembled a giant insect clicked and buzzed as it tended to plants that grew in patterns too perfect for nature. Everything she saw reminded her that humanity was young and small in this vast galaxy. The council chamber was a massive oval room with seats, arranged in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. 12 different species sat in judgment, each more alien and impressive than the last. The Zerathi representatives formed geometric patterns with their crystal bodies. The Volonians swirled in elegant gas clouds above their floating platforms. The Kriktar delegates looked like praying mantises the size of bears, their multiple eyes watching everything at once. At the center sat Speaker Zethmorin of the Sword Dominion. He was 15 feet tall with scales that shifted from green to gold, and his yellow eyes held the wisdom of ages. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like rolling thunder. "So these are the humans," Speaker Zethmorin said, looking down at Elena and her companions. "We have studied your species for some time. You are remarkably young, having only discovered fire a few thousand years ago. Your technology is crude compared to the least advanced council member. Your societies are chaotic and violent, constantly at war with yourselves. Your lifespans are so brief that you barely have time to learn wisdom before you die." Elena felt Jake tense beside her, but she remained calm. She had expected this. However, the speaker continued, "The council recognizes that every species has something to contribute to galactic civilization. The Zerathi brought us mathematics and perfect engineering. The Volonians mastered the manipulation of energy itself. The Kriktar developed biotechnology that can reshape life at will. Even the youngest council members have served faithfully for over 1,000 years." A delegate that looked like a jellyfish floating in a bubble of water pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The translator turned its flashes into words. "The Delphine Collective has maintained the great stations and cleaned the sacred chambers for 800 years. We are proud to serve the Council's wisdom." "Yes," Speaker Zethmorin nodded. "Every species finds its place. Some contribute knowledge, others provide labor, still others offer resources or unique perspectives. The question is what humans can offer to justify their existence in our galaxy." Dr. Lisa Grant stepped forward eagerly. "We have prepared extensive documentation of human achievements. Our art, our science, our exploration of space despite limited technology. We believe our creativity and adaptability could benefit the Council greatly. The Crick-Tar representative made a sound like clicking clockwork. Creativity is the refuge of the primitive mind. Order and proper function serve civilization better than chaos. Your adaptability is simply a lack of proper specialization, added Azirathi in crystalline tones. Mature species develop focused excellence in their chosen fields. Speaker Zeth Morin raised a clawed hand for silence. The Council has debated humanity's fate for many cycles. We have decided to offer you the chance to prove your worth. You have one standard galactic year to demonstrate what unique contribution your species can make to our civilization. During this time, you will remain here as our guests while we evaluate your efforts. Elena noticed how the word guests sounded more like prisoners in the vast chamber. If you succeed in proving your value, the speaker continued, humanity will be granted associate membership in the Galactic Council. You will be assigned your proper role in galactic society and allowed to serve alongside the other member species. Your homeworld will be protected and guided by Council wisdom. And if we fail, Elena asked quietly, then Earth will be classified as a protectorate world. Your people will become subjects of the Council rather than members. We will manage your planet's resources and population for the greater good of galactic civilization. Do not worry, we are not cruel. Protectorate species are well cared for, given meaningful work within their capabilities, and protected from the dangers of unguided development. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of alien machinery and the whisper of recycled air. Elena looked around at the 12 species that had appointed themselves judges of humanity's fate. She saw beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, who viewed humans as children playing with dangerous toys, who believed their ancient wisdom gave them the right to decide Earth's future. Dr. Grant opened her tablet, ready to begin humanity's presentation. Jake Morrison's hand moved closer to his weapon, though they all knew it would be useless. The delegates leaned forward in their seats, expecting either desperate pleading or lengthy justification from the primitive humans. Elena Rodriguez, ambassador of Earth and representative of 7 billion human souls, stood up slowly. She looked directly at Speaker Zeth Morin, then let her gaze sweep across all 12 species that claimed dominion over the stars. The chamber held its breath, waiting for humanity's response to 10,000 years of galactic order. No, Elena said. The single word echoed through the vast chamber like a stone dropped into still water. Silence followed, stretching longer and longer as the ancient council tried to process what they had just heard. Never in their long history had any species simply refused their generous offer of guided membership in galactic civilization. No, Elena repeated, her voice steady and clear in the stunned quiet of the council chamber. The translator systems of 12 different species made strange noises as they tried to process Elena's response. Several aliens looked at their devices with confusion, wondering if their equipment had malfunctioned. Azirathi delegate's crystal body flickered between colors like a broken traffic light. The Volonian representative's gas form swirled faster and faster, creating small whirlwinds of panic. Speaker Zeth Morin leaned forward on his massive throne, his yellow eyes narrowing to slits. Surely you misspoke, human. Our translators must have failed to convey our generous offer properly. We are giving your species the chance to join galactic civilization. This is an honor that primitive worlds dream of for millennia. Elena stood perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back. Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Grant flanked her, both looking nervous but determined to support their ambassador. I spoke clearly, Speaker Zeth Morin. Humanity's answer is no. We reject your offer entirely. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens who had maintained perfect composure for thousands of years began making sounds of shock and disbelief. The Kriktar delegate's antenna twitched rapidly while its multiple eyes blinked, in patterns that showed extreme agitation. A delegate that looked like a walking tree began shedding leaves that glowed with bioluminescent distress signals. "This is impossible," clicked the Kriktar in mechanical tones. "No species has ever refused council membership. It violates all logic and proper order. They must not understand what they are saying." The jellyfish-like Delphini representative pulsed with rapid flashes of light. Perhaps their primitive brains cannot process the magnitude of the honor being offered to them. We should explain more slowly, using smaller concepts. Elena stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. "We understand perfectly. You want us to prove that we deserve to exist in our own galaxy. You want us to beg for permission to be free. You want us to accept that ancient aliens know better than we do about how humans should live." Our answer remains no. Dr. Grant moved closer to Elena, whispering urgently, "Ambassador, perhaps we should consider the long-term consequences. They have technology we cannot match. Earth's entire space fleet could not defeat a single council." "Ship." Elena did not take her eyes off Speaker Zeithmorin. "Dr. Grant, would you accept a job where your employer told you that you had to prove you deserved to be paid, and if you failed, you would become their property instead of their employee?" "Of course not, but this is different. These are advanced civilizations with thousands of years of experience governing the galaxy. And we are humans," Elena replied simply. "We do not kneel to kings, even alien ones." The Zirithi delegate's crystal body had settled into an angry red glow. Its mathematical mind struggled to compute such illogical behavior. This defiance serves no purpose. You cannot fight the entire council. Your primitive weapons and crude ships would be destroyed in moments. Your refusal will only bring suffering to your people. Jake Morrison finally spoke, his hand still resting near his sidearm. "Maybe so, but they will suffer as free humans, not as alien pets." Speaker Zeithmorin rose from his throne, his 15-foot frame casting a shadow across the human delegation. "You speak of freedom, but you know nothing of the galaxy's dangers. There are forces in the dark spaces between stars that would devour your entire species for breakfast. Pirates and raiders who enslave entire worlds. Ancient machines left behind by dead civilizations that turn planets into ash. The Council's protection is all that stands between young species and extinction." Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "Then we will face those dangers as humans have always faced the unknown, together, with courage, and on our own terms." Back on Earth, news of Elena's response spread across the planet within hours. The global communication networks carried her words to every nation and continent. In New York, the United Nations Security Council held emergency meetings to discuss the implications. In Beijing, Chinese officials debated whether to support or denounce their ambassador's bold stance. In Moscow, military leaders calculated Earth's chances in a war against alien technology. Captain Ryan Parker stood on the bridge of the UE's Freedom, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Around him, officers monitored screens showing the positions of alien vessels throughout the solar system. The ship was barely more than a metal box with engines compared to Council technology, but it represented humanity's determination to defend itself. "Sir, we are receiving communications from resistance groups on a dozen different worlds," reported Communications Officer Jenny Walsh. "It seems humanity's refusal is inspiring other species to question Council authority." Parker nodded grimly. "Patch me through to Earth Command. Tell them we need every ship ready for launch. If the Council decides to make an example of us, we are going to give them a fight they will never forget." On Europa, human mining colonies began stockpiling supplies and weapons. On Mars, terraforming engineers started converting their equipment into defensive systems. Throughout the outer system, human settlements prepared for the possibility that their homeworlds, Defiance, might bring the full weight of galactic civilization down upon them. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, analyzing every piece of data Earth had gathered about Council technology. Her team of scientists represented the best minds from every nation, united in the desperate hope of finding weaknesses in alien systems that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. "The power sources are beyond our understanding," she reported to her assistants. "But the hulls of their ships show stress patterns. They rely on force fields rather than thick armor. If we could find a way to disrupt those fields." Meanwhile, on distant worlds throughout the galaxy, other species watched the human defiance with growing interest. The Delphine Collective had served as janitors and maintenance workers for 800 years, never questioning their lowly status. But Elena's words echoed in their aquatic minds, making them wonder why they had accepted subservience for so long. Network Prime, a machine intelligence that had been classified as a useful tool rather than a true member species, began running calculations on alternatives to Council rule. Its vast processing power had never been used to question the system it served, but humanity's refusal had introduced new variables into its programming. Even among the Council species themselves, Elena's defiance created ripples of doubt. Younger members who had earned their membership through centuries of proving their worth began to ask private questions about why such proof had been necessary. Had they truly been honored with membership, or had they simply been broken into submission? Speaker Zith Morin watched the humans through the station's security monitors. Elena and her companions had been moved to comfortable quarters that were nevertheless clearly a prison. They showed no signs of fear or regret, instead, spending their time studying everything they could observe about Council technology and culture. "Perhaps we should simply eliminate them now," suggested the Kriktar delegate during a private Council session. "Their defiance is creating dangerous ideas among the lesser species." "No," Seth Morin replied after long consideration. "That would make them martyrs. We will give them time to reconsider their position. When they realize the futility of resistance, their eventual submission will be even more valuable as a lesson to others." But as the speaker watched Elena Rodriguez calmly discussing strategy with her companions, he began to wonder if he had truly understood what humanity represented. For the first time in his long life, Seth Morin felt something he had not experienced. In millennia of unchallenged rule, he felt uncertain. Dr. Marcus Wells sat in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by screens showing data about every Council species. For weeks he had been studying the aliens who claimed to rule the galaxy, searching for patterns that might explain their power. What he discovered made him reach for his secure communication device to contact Elena immediately. "Ambassador, I have found something important," Marcus said into the encrypted channel that connected Earth to the Jupiter station. "These Council species are not as superior as they pretend to be. They are predictable in ways that humans are not." Alana's voice crackled through the static. "Explain, Dr. Wells. We need every advantage we can find." Marcus pulled up holographic displays showing the homeworlds of various Council species. "Look at their origins. The Zirathi evolved on a tidally locked planet where one side always faced their sun. Perfect mathematical harmony. No seasonal changes. No unpredictable weather. The Volonians developed in the stable atmosphere of a gas giant where energy flows followed consistent patterns for millions of years." He switched to another display, showing the Kriktar homeworld. Even the warrior species grew up on a world where biological adaptation followed predictable evolutionary pressures. Every Council species came from stable, unchanging environments, where survival meant following established patterns perfectly. Elena understood immediately, but Earth was different. "Completely different," Marcus confirmed. Ice ages that came and went without warning. Asteroid impacts that changed everything overnight. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Earthquakes, floods, droughts, and climate shifts that forced our ancestors to adapt constantly or die. We are the children of chaos, Ambassador. We learn to thrive on change while they learn to fear it. On the Jupiter station, Elena shared this information with Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Grant. They were still confined to their quarters, but the aliens had underestimated human curiosity and ingenuity. Lisa had been quietly analyzing the station systems, while Jake mapped security patterns and escape routes. That explains why they react so strongly to our unpredictability, Lisa said. Their entire civilization is based on maintaining order and following established procedures. We represent everything they have spent thousands of years trying to eliminate from their society. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime at their door. Elena opened it to find a being she had never seen before, roughly humanoid, but with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. The creature wore simple robes and seemed nervous about being discovered. "I am Nav Finn of the Ethereal Federation," the alien whispered. "I must speak with you quickly before the security sensors detect my presence here." Elena stepped aside to let Nav Finn enter. "Why are you taking this risk?" "Because your words in the council chamber have awakened something in my people that has been sleeping for centuries," Nav Finn replied, his voice filled with quiet desperation. "We were once explorers and philosophers, seeking knowledge throughout the galaxy. But the council convinced us that such pursuits were dangerous and inefficient. They gave us the role of record keepers and archivists instead." Jake positioned himself near the door to watch for guards. "How does that connect to our situation?" Nav Finn pulled out a small device that projected holographic documents into the air. "I have been studying the true history of council formation, records that most species are not allowed to see. The original founders did not create this system to bring order to the galaxy. They created it to ensure their own species would never face serious competition." Elena studied the floating documents, seeing star charts and political agreements that dated back thousands of years. This shows that many species were already advanced when the council was formed. They were forced to accept subordinate roles through economic pressure and military threats. "Exactly," Nav Finn confirmed. "The council's power does not come from superior wisdom or technology. It comes from an agreement that prevents member species from challenging the established hierarchy. But you humans never signed that agreement. You exist outside their system entirely." Dr. Grant leaned forward eagerly. "That means our refusal is not just defiance. It is proof that their authority is artificial, not natural." Nav Finn nodded. "And that is why they are so frightened of you. Every day that you resist shows other species that the council's power depends on our willingness to submit. If enough species simply stop obeying, their entire system collapses." Before Nav Finn could say more, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as automated voices announced in multiple languages that unauthorized personnel were in restricted areas. Jake grabbed his sidearm while Elena moved to the window to see what was happening outside. "Human ships approaching the station," she reported, watching as sleek vessels emerged from behind Jupiter's largest moon. "That looks like Captain Amy Chun's squadron from the Mars Defense Fleet." Nav Finn's silver eyes widened with fear and excitement. "They came for you. No species has ever attempted to extract ambassadors from a council station by force. We humans have never been good at following other people's rules." Elena replied with a grim smile. The station shook as weapons fire exchanged between human and alien vessels. Elena could see through the transparent aluminum windows that Amy Chun was executing a rescue operation that completely ignored established diplomatic protocols. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic and unpredictable, making it impossible for the alien defenders to anticipate their next moves. Captain Chun's voice came through Elena's communicator. Ambassador Rodriguez, we are here to bring you home. Can you reach the docking bay in Section 7? Jake was already checking his weapons and studying the station's schematics Lisa had memorized. It will be dangerous, but we can make it if we move now. Elena turned to Navthin. Come with us. Your people deserve to know the truth about Council history. The alien shook his head sadly. I cannot abandon my duties here, but I can do something else. He handed Elena a data crystal containing thousands of classified Council documents. Show the galaxy what their rulers have been hiding. Help other species understand that they have a choice. As they prepared to leave, Elena activated the station's general communication system, overriding security protocols with techniques Lisa had learned from studying alien technology. Her voice echoed through every corridor and chamber in the massive structure, reaching not just the Council delegates, but also representatives from dozens of other species who were visiting the station. People of the galaxy, Elena began, her words being automatically translated into hundreds of languages. You have been told that you need the Council's guidance to survive among the stars. You have been told that ancient wisdom is better than your own judgment. You have been told that questioning authority leads to chaos and destruction. The station shook again as more human ships arrived to support the rescue operation. Elena continued speaking even as Jake and Lisa prepared their escape route. But I have seen the records that prove these claims are lies. The Council's power comes not from your need for their leadership, but from your willingness to believe you are not capable of governing yourselves. They maintain control by convincing you that freedom is dangerous, and that submission is safety. Elena could hear alien guards approaching their quarters as she delivered her final message to the galaxy. We humans offer you a different choice. Join us not as subjects seeking approval from your betters, but as equals working together toward a future we create ourselves. The galaxy belongs to all of us, not just to those who claim the right to rule it. As Elena finished speaking, Jake blasted open their door and led them into corridors filled with confused and frightened aliens. Behind them, Navthin watched through the window as human ships fought with tactics no Council species had ever seen before. For the first time in 1,000 years, he felt something his people had almost forgotten. He felt hope. War Commander Thexkar of the Iron Talon Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive Council fleet assemble around him. Ships from 12 different species formed perfect formations that stretched across the space between Jupiter and Saturn. Each vessel gleamed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. The humans must be taught respect, Thexkar growled to his assembled officers. His species looked like walking armored bears, with metallic claws and red eyes that glowed in the darkness of space. Their defiance has spread to other worlds like a disease. 3 systems have declared independence from Council rule in the past week alone. His tactical officer, a Kriktar named Clikthan, displayed holographic reports from across the galaxy. The Delphine Collective has stopped maintaining Council stations. The Ethereal Federation refuses to provide historical records for new membership applications. Even some Zirithi mathematicians are questioning the logic of our hierarchical system. Thexkar slammed his metal claw against the command console, leaving deep scratches in the alien metal. All because one primitive species said no to proper authority. We will crush Earth so completely that no other world will dare follow their example. The Council fleet moved toward Earth with the confidence of ancient power. Every ship captain had studied human military tactics and found them laughably primitive. Humans still used chemical rockets and metal projectiles, while Council forces wielded energy weapons and matter manipulation technology. The coming battle would be a demonstration of what happened when children tried to fight their elders. But Captain Ben Foster of the Earth Defense Force had different plans. He stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, leading a human fleet that seemed impossibly small compared to the alien armada. Around him, officers from every nation on Earth worked together with a unity that their species had never achieved before. The alien threat had done what centuries of diplomacy could not, bringing humanity together as one people. Enemy fleet is maintaining standard council formation, reported Lieutenant Sarah Murphy from her fighter squadron. They expect us to meet them head-on with conventional tactics. Foster smiled grimly. Then we will give them something they have never seen before. All ships execute pattern chaos. The human fleet suddenly scattered in directions that seemed completely random. Ships that had been flying in neat formations broke apart like startled birds, each vessel following a different path that made no logical sense. Council tactical computers tried to predict human movements and failed completely. Unable to process strategies that seemed to have no pattern at all, Engineer Tony Rodriguez worked frantically in the engine room of the UE's Freedom, making modifications that violated every safety protocol in the human fleet manual. Captain Parker, I have jury-rigged the main drive to give us 50% more speed, but it might explode at any moment. Do it, Parker replied without hesitation. Better to die trying something impossible than to lose playing by the rules. Throughout the human fleet, similar scenes played out as engineers and technicians pushed their equipment beyond all reasonable limits. They welded weapons systems together in ways that should not work, rerouted power through circuits that were never designed to handle such loads, and created hybrid technologies that existed nowhere in any manual or training program. War Commander Dex Carr watched the chaotic human movements with growing frustration. What are they doing? This makes no tactical sense. Are they trying to flee or attack? His answer came when the first human ship, the U East Liberty, piloted by Commander Janet Lee, suddenly reversed course and charged directly at his flagship. But instead of firing weapons, the small human vessel began broadcasting on all frequencies in dozens of alien languages. Attention Council forces, Janet's voice echoed across the battlefield. You are fighting for masters who see you as tools, not allies. Earth offers you freedom to choose your own destiny. Surrender now and join the growing coalition of free worlds. Vexcar roared with rage. Destroy that insolent vessel immediately. But before his weapons could fire, something unprecedented happened. The crew of a Valonian energy ship stopped fighting and began broadcasting their own message. We accept the human offer. The Valonian Third Fleet withdraws from this battle and requests asylum with the Earth Coalition. Similar declarations came from ships throughout the Council fleet as Dr. Nina Bell's psychological warfare campaign took effect. She had spent weeks studying each Council species, learning their cultural values and social weaknesses. The broadcasts targeted their deepest fears and highest hopes, offering them something the Council had never provided: respect for their individual worth. This is impossible, Clickfin reported with mechanical precision. Council military doctrine assumes perfect loyalty from all member species. There are no protocols for handling mass defection during combat. The battle became unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships darted between the larger alien vessels, not trying to destroy them, but to disable their weapons and capture their crews. When Council ships surrendered, human boarding parties treated the alien prisoners with dignity and offered them food, medical care, and detailed explanations of what Earth's coalition stood for. Vexcar found his massive fleet fragmenting as entire squadrons switched sides. The Delphine vessels that had been serving as support ships suddenly turned their maintenance equipment into weapons. helping human forces disable Council warships from within. Even some Iron Talon Empire ships began questioning why they were fighting to preserve a system that treated them as expendable soldiers. "Sir, we have lost 60% of our fleet to defection," Click then reported with increasing panic in his mechanical voice. "The remaining ships are requesting new orders." Vexcar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His perfect formations had dissolved into chaos as species after species chose freedom over obedience. The humans had not won through superior firepower or advanced technology. They had won by offering their enemies something more valuable than victory. Hope. Captain Foster opened communications with the remaining Council forces. "War Commander Vexcar, your fleet is broken and your cause is lost. But Earth does not. Seek your destruction. Surrender now, and we will guarantee safe passage home for any who wish to return to Council space." "Never," Vexcar snarled. "The Iron Talon Empire does not surrender to primitives." "Then you will fight alone," Foster replied calmly. One by one, the remaining Council ships powered down their weapons and requested permission to withdraw from the battle. Even many of Vexcar's own Iron Talon vessels chose retreat over pointless destruction. The war commander found himself commanding fewer than a dozen ships from a fleet that had once numbered in the hundreds. Dr. Bell continued her broadcasts, speaking directly to the crews of the remaining ships. "Your commander clings to an old system that sees you as disposable tools of war. But you are individuals with families, dreams, and the right to choose your own future. The choice is yours to make." Vexcar watched in growing horror as his own officers began to question their orders. The perfect discipline that had made the Iron Talon Empire the Council's most effective military force started to crack under the weight of human ideas about individual worth and personal freedom. "Sir," his navigation officer said quietly, "perhaps we should consider the human offer. Our families on the homeworld deserve to see us return alive." The war commander realized that humanity had achieved something no Council species had ever imagined possible. They had turned the galaxy's most powerful military force against itself, not through conquest, but through the simple offer of choice and dignity. For the first time in his long military career, Vexcar understood that some battles could not be won with weapons. As his flagship drifted alone in the darkness between worlds, surrounded by human vessels offering mercy instead of destruction, the war commander finally grasped what made these strange primates so dangerous. They fought not just for victory, but for principles that made others want to join them. Elena Rodriguez stood in what had once been the United Nations building in New York, but was now the headquarters of the Free Worlds Coalition. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docked in the harbor. That had been converted into a spaceport. Delphine vessels floated in specially constructed water tanks, while Volonian energy beings swirled through crystalline containment towers. The sight would have been impossible just 1 year ago. Admiral John Stevens, who had been Captain Foster during the Great Battle, entered the room carrying reports from across the galaxy. His uniform now bore the insignia of the Coalition fleet, a simple design that represented cooperation rather than domination. "Ambassador, we have updates from the outer systems. The Rimward Alliance has voted to join our coalition, bringing our total membership to 47 independent species." Elena nodded as she reviewed the data on her tablet. Each new member brought unique knowledge and abilities that strengthened the whole. The Zirathi mathematicians had discovered new applications for their skills when freed from rigid Council restrictions. The Volonian energy manipulators were working with human engineers to create power systems that neither species could have developed alone. What about the remaining Council strongholds? Elena asked. Stevens pulled up a galactic map showing the current political situation. The core Council worlds have withdrawn to the ancient sectors near the galactic center. Speaker Zeeth Morin and his inner circle still claim authority over the galaxy, but fewer species recognize their rule each day. They control maybe 20 systems now, compared to the thousands they ruled a year ago. Dr. Alex Morgan arrived from the research complex that had been built where the old UN parking lot used to be. She carried a tablet full of breakthrough discoveries that were reshaping galactic science. The joint research projects are exceeding all expectations. When species work together as equals, instead of in rigid hierarchies, innovation happens at incredible speed. We have made more advances in the past 6 months than the Council achieved in their last century. Elena smiled as she remembered the early days of the Coalition, when many species had struggled to work together without clear authority structures. The Kriktar had been especially confused by the concept of voluntary cooperation, having spent millennia following orders without question. But gradually, even the most hierarchical species had learned to value the freedom to contribute their own ideas. Captain Amy Chun entered, carrying a communication device that was flashing with urgent signals. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from the Council stronghold. Speaker Zeeth Morin wants to negotiate a peace treaty. Elena's expression grew serious. She had been expecting this moment since the Coalition began growing beyond what anyone had imagined possible. Put him through? The holographic image of Speaker Zeeth Morin appeared in the center of the room, his massive form looking older and more tired than Elena remembered. His golden scales had dulled, and his yellow eyes held a weariness that spoke of defeat and confusion. Ambassador Rodriguez, the speaker began, his voice lacking its former thunder. The Council is prepared to offer terms for ending this conflict. We will recognize human independence and grant your species full membership rights in exchange for ceasing your recruitment of other worlds. Elena studied the alien leader who had once dismissed humanity as primitive children. Speaker Zeeth Morin, you still do not understand what has happened here. This was never about human independence. This was about the right of all species to choose their own destiny. Your rebellion has thrown the galaxy into chaos, Zeeth Morin replied with growing frustration. Without proper authority, trade routes are being disrupted, territorial disputes are erupting, and young species are making dangerous decisions without guidance. The old order maintained peace for 10,000 years. Dr. Morgan stepped forward. With her research data, the old order maintained stagnation, not peace. In the past year, we have eliminated 3 different galactic plagues that the Council ignored for centuries. We have established new trade networks that benefit all participants equally. We have prevented 2 wars through voluntary mediation instead of forced compliance. Elena walked closer to the holographic projection, looking directly into Zeeth Morin's ancient eyes. The chaos you describe is growing pains, not destruction. Species that have been told what to think for thousands of years need time to learn how to make their own choices. But they are learning, and the galaxy is becoming stronger because of it. Stevens added his military perspective. Our coalition fleet has stopped more pirate raids and protected more trade convoys than the Council forces ever did. When people fight to defend something they chose to build together, they fight harder than when they are simply following orders. Zeeth Morin's image flickered as his transmission weakened. The speaker's voice carried a note of genuine confusion that Elena had never heard before. But without central authority, how do you maintain order? How do you prevent conflicts between species with different values and goals? The same way humans learn to work together, despite our differences, Elena replied. Through respect, compromise, and the understanding that diversity makes us stronger rather than weaker. We do not eliminate conflicts, Speaker. We resolve them through discussion instead of domination. The transmission ended abruptly as Zeeth Morin cut the connection, unable or unwilling to accept what humanity was offering. Elena felt a moment. of sadness for the ancient leader who had spent his entire life believing that order required submission to authority. Amy Chun checked her communication device again. Ambassador, we are receiving surrender requests from 3 more council systems. The Spiral Arm Federation wants to join our coalition, and they control some of the richest mining worlds in their sector. Elena turned back to the window, watching. As a new ship arrived carrying refugees from a council world where the local population had voted to overthrow their appointed governor. The vessel was crowded with beings who had chosen freedom over security, uncertainty over submission. Send word to all coalition worlds, Elena said firmly. Anyone who wants to join us as an equal partner is welcome. Anyone who wants to return to council rule is free to leave. And anyone who simply wants to be left alone to govern themselves has our protection and respect. Stevens began organizing the logistics of welcoming yet another group of new members. Each species brought challenges and opportunities that required careful negotiation and creative solutions. But they also brought enthusiasm and hope that energized the entire coalition. As the sun set over New York Harbor, Elena Rodriguez reflected on how far the galaxy had come since she spoke that single word in the council chamber. The ancient order that had ruled for 10 millennia was crumbling, not because humanity had conquered it, but because they had offered something better. No, she said quietly to herself, remembering that moment of defiance that had changed everything. It had been such a simple word, but it contained within it the power to reshape an entire galaxy. Outside her window, beings from dozens of worlds worked together to build something that had never existed before. A galactic civilization based on choice rather than compulsion, cooperation rather than hierarchy, and respect rather than fear. The word that had started a revolution was the same word that would protect the future. They were building together. Elena smiled as she prepared for another day of helping the galaxy learn that the most powerful force in the universe was not ancient authority or superior technology. It was the simple courage to say no to those who claimed the right to rule others, and yes to the possibility that free people could build something better together. The Galactic Council had not expected humanity's one-word challenge because they had forgotten the most important truth in the universe. Freedom, once offered, could never be taken back.